Listen up, people. That's right. It's time to listen to the sparks of bliss in your life. I'm your host and life coach, Caroline de Posada from Miami, Florida. And this podcast is an invitation to join me in upgrading our mindset, wellness, and relationships so that together we create a life that unlocks our bliss. Join me each week as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and the moments of clarity, or as we like to call them, los momenticos, that make the world a little more magical. Consider this your weekly dose of wisdom in your pocket. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Hey, listeners, welcome to episode number 35 of Bliss'n Up. This is officially our last episode of 2024 and the very first time that we bring in a new year together, which is very exciting. 2024 is a very special year for me because it is the year that I launched this podcast, which had been a project that I'd been carrying in my heart for many years. And I finally launched it in May of 2024. So not only am I celebrating the fact that I launched this podcast, but I get to celebrate the bringing in of a new year with you. And that just touches my heart. So what I thought would be fun to do today is to share with you, I've been implementing different practices at the end of the year and the beginning of a year for years. And I've implemented some practices that have served me very well and some that have not served me quite as well. And I have theories as to why one works versus the other. So I thought it would be a cool idea today to share these practices with you. I'm going to share the 5 practices that have most supported my year, that I think would most support your year. And I'm going to share a few other practices that are fun to try. And I invite you to try them if you want. But I have not been as consistent with those, even though I love them in theory, but I haven't been consistent with them. And I'm going to share with you why I think I haven't been consistent with them throughout the year. I'm going to give you kind of like a menu of things to try, and you get to try one or many or all of them, whatever serves your soul. And you get to re-listen to this and implement this throughout the year if you so choose, if you want to change course or try something new, because this is a journey, right? It's always evolving. It's always progressing. There's no hard formula for any of this. So one of the practices, and I'm going to start with this one, even though it's one of my most recent practices, but I'm going to start with it because I think it's going to set the tone for everything. And it is the practice of living by seasons. I'm going to tell you why I find this to be so important. So I've always known that we have seasons, right? We all know that there are 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall. It's pretty basic. And even though I know about this theoretically, I've talked about this in the past. I live in Miami, so I do not experience seasons the way that people in the Northeast and in other parts of the world experience seasons, because nature has tricked us here in Miami into believing that life is an eternal summer and spring. So I didn't grow up experiencing seasons, even though I studied them in the textbooks. I knew that they existed. I understood them from a theoretical perspective, but I never actually lived seasons. And a couple of years ago, I was listening to a podcast. I've shared this story many times. My friend Frances Rios was interviewing Michelle Villalobos on this podcast, and she started sharing how she lives according to seasons. So she's talking in this interview about what each season represents. And she starts to explain winter and how winter is a time for hibernating, resting, going inward. It's a time that's supposed to be a little darker and colder. It's not the energy of winter is not the energy of springing into action. That's actually the energy of spring. And as she's explaining this, I'm realizing that New Year's Eve falls squarely in wintertime. And for the first time ever, it dawned on me why many people must struggle with New Year's resolutions. Because what we are taught to believe and what we are fed by society is, you're ending this year in December, and January is start fresh, start new, jump into action, start the diet, join the gym, start the new year, act. And we're actually really within the time of winter. This is not in alignment with nature. Now, in Miami, you don't see this because we're always in a perpetual spring and summer. But even so, I find that people in Miami often struggle with springing into action in New Year's. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying that you can't start something in New Year's that you carry with you throughout the entire year, that you can't set a resolution for yourself and start to finish. We are limitless individuals, and maybe you've been able to accomplish that. And if you have, kudos to you. So this is not to say that you can't have a New Year's resolution or anything like that, but it explains why it might be an uphill battle. It gives us permission to understand why it might take us a little bit to get into action, or why we may feel like it requires a lot of energy and then all of a sudden by February we've lost that momentum. And really it's because we've used all this energy in a way that might not be aligned with nature. That has been game-changing for me. Now, instead of thinking about these like New Year's resolutions that I must set at the end of the year so that I can start the new year and get on this race to the next year, I recognize that I'm still in the winter season, that this is a time to dream, to incubate, to reflect, to think, to start creating dreams and intentions that I want to step into for the new year, but without that time crunch of like, I have to start on January 1st. So that has been the most supportive practice that I've had so far. I can ease into springing into action because I have the time. The second practice that has served me well is choosing one word for the year. This is a practice I've been implementing for many years now. And I love this practice because choosing a word is really kind of becoming an essentialist of your intention. It's about thinking, what do I want to be governed by energetically for this year? Maybe this is the year that I want to focus on growing. Maybe this is the year that I want to focus on being more peaceful or being more present or experiencing more joy or listening to the sparks of bliss in my life. So like this year for me was listen. This may be the year to find your purpose, or the year of intentions, or the year of focus. Choosing a word is like creating a North Star that says, how do I know that I am in alignment with the energy that I want to feel? I kind of want to have an overarching umbrella that always brings me back to remembering. I had a client whose word this year was magic. And all year, she stepped into looking for magic in her life, accepting moments of synchronicity, connecting the dots, interpreting the magic that she found. It was a magical year. And it was set by choosing the word of the year to be magic. So it could be whatever you want that word to be. Now, if this is a practice that you're curious about and you want to know more about, I actually created a choose your word guide. It has a video and a PDF with prompts and questions to help you decipher what is your word of the year. I will put that on my show notes so that you can access that guide and choose your word for the year. And here's the thing. Doesn't have to be on the 1st of January that you choose your word. You're in the winter, my friend. So if you choose your word in February or at the end of January or at the beginning of December, doesn't matter. There's no rush, there's no pressure. It's a practice that you get to ease your way into. But when you find your word, you will know that is the word. And this isn't something that you need to overthink. Every year you get to choose a new one. So you pick a word and then you love your word and you move forward. And you see how it supports you. But I'm going to tell you the secret sauce behind why I think this practice serves me as well as it does. And that is, I wear my word. I engrave my word on a bracelet. There's a company called myintent.org, I think it's called. And you can create your own bracelets with a word. So I engrave the word on my bracelet. I do this also for my clients and some of my workshops. And I wear this word the whole year. So it is on my wrist. I see the word every single day. So all I have to do to remember to stay on path is look at my wrist. It's visible. It's something I get to live by. And that has been very helpful for me. The third practice that has supported me tremendously is the practice of monthly themes. Now, the word is like this overarching big picture. But as you know, life comes at you pretty fast. And every month is different. And we go through ups and downs. And because we have so many different seasons throughout the year, we fluctuate and different things take priority. So every month, I set an intention for the month and I create a theme. And at the end of the year, you end up with 12 themes that, imagine that they are pearls on a necklace. And each pearl represents a different intention that you set throughout the year. Each pearl is connected to the next pearl. So it becomes almost a collection of intentions. And hopefully each month you stack on one intention over the other, so that you start to develop the practice of living with intention throughout the year. I think it's one of the most beautiful practices that you can have. So you'll notice in my podcast, at the beginning of each month, it's like the beginning of a new year, because we go through the exercise of noticing what the last month was like, the energy that we're in, naming the intention that we want to step into, what do we want to get from the next year, and nurturing that habit. And at the end, imagine if you've nurtured 12 intentions. It makes for a very, very meaningful year. And one of the reasons I think this works so well is because this is not something that's a one and done. It's repetitive. So every month I go through the exercise, not only myself, but with my clients. I go through the exercise on this podcast. So there's a sense of repetition. One of the problems I think with New Year's resolutions is that it's a one and done. You set the resolutions and then they're easily forgotten because it's a one and done. But with this, there's repetition. Every month, you can revisit this practice. Now, here's an interesting one. My fourth practice worked and also didn't work because it's a one and done. the practice was, it was actually trending on Instagram last year, and I loved it. There was these people were posting on Instagram, these two columns, what's in and what's out for 2024. And then people would write their little like, what's in is this and what's out is that. And I thought, what a cute practice. I'm going to do that for my New Year's intention and my practice. And I did a little list of what's in and what's out. And it did not serve me in that I have since lost the list. I have no idea what my list of what's in and what my list of what's out was. I couldn't tell you. With the exception of one thing, and that was flowers. For me, what I wanted to have in 2024 was flowers. I wanted to buy myself flowers consistently. I wanted to have fresh flowers in a vase on my kitchen counter consistently. Like I wanted to have flowers. Now, I have a dear friend of mine, Randy Gage. Randy Gage is a prosperity coach and speaker. He's like the prosperity guru. And I remember him once talking about the energy of prosperity and being rich, and how it doesn't take a lot of money to live a rich life. But there are certain things that make you feel rich. And one of the examples that he used was fresh flowers. Another example that he used was going to the beach, for example, a sunset or a sunrise. There are certain things that you can have in your life that make you feel rich. For me, that always stuck. I always liked that idea and I always wanted flowers, but I'm going to tell you what used to happen to me with the flowers. I never bought flowers for myself because here in Miami, there's like little spots where you could get reasonably priced flowers. Like there's a guy on the corner on this street and he sells roses for $5. But then if you go to Milam's or Whole Foods or Publix, the flowers are $20 and they're very expensive. So you're always waiting to go to the guy on the corner of the street to get the cheap flowers. Well, I used to have that mentality. And in 2024, the difference was that I decided I wanted to have flowers and I was willing to pay whatever the price was, so long as it was reasonable. I wasn't going to spend $100 on flowers. But if the price was reasonable, $12, $20, $16, I wasn't going to continue to wait to go to the guy on the corner of the street, because by waiting to do that, I was never going to actually have flowers. And I decided that in 2024, I wanted to have flowers. So every time that I would go to the grocery store and I would see pretty flowers, I would just buy them. And here's another thing that happened. I told this to the people around me. I would share my love of flowers with my clients. I put it on Instagram. I shared it with my husband. And you know what else happened? My client, I have one client in particular whom I love and adore. She showed up at my doorstep for a coaching session with beautiful flowers that she found from the guy on the corner of the street that sells them at a really great price. And she brought the flowers to me because I put it out there. So what served me about this what's in and what's out practice was that I chose one thing that was specific enough and doable enough and small enough for me to be able to implement throughout the year. I couldn't tell you what else was on my list. And the truth is, it does not matter. So the list in and of itself didn't 100% serve me because I don't know what was out. I don't know what was in. I don't remember the list at all. But the list served me so much because it helped me identify one thing, one tangible thing that I could incorporate into my year, that at the end of the year, I can look back so fondly and think, I had the year of flowers. This was the entire year. I enjoyed fresh, rich flowers, and it made me feel rich and loved. And my husband brought me flowers, and my friends brought me flowers, and my clients brought me flowers, and I bought myself flowers. And the whole year was full of it. So I loved that practice. So for you, I would invite you to make your list, and do one of two things. Either keep it in a place that is 100% visible, that you see the entire year, or keep it on your phone, or keep it somewhere that you're going to be able to see, or choose one thing that you want in for 2025 and make it a priority the whole year and see what happens. See how much you enjoy bringing one thing into your year that might make your year a little more meaningful, a little more special, a little more joyful. I think that was very helpful. And then the last practice that I used was I bought myself a big ass calendar from Jesse Itzler. This is number 5. And this big ass calendar, I'm going to tell you, at the beginning was extremely overwhelming. I didn't quite know how to use it, but I bought the calendar and I put it on my wall, and I've been learning how to use it throughout the entire year. It has been a work in progress. But what served me about it was that I've been able to see my year at a glance. I've loved seeing the whole year. What served me was that it kept me re-engaging every month with my theme. It kept me re-engaging with my podcast. It kept me on track. It allowed me to see the bigger picture of the year, and I am learning how to use it. So it wasn't perfect, but there was a lot of progress, and I think it really supported me. So for this year, I have already purchased my big ass calendar, and I've already begun planning my year with the big ass calendar to have it visible. So what is the common theme about all these practices? The common theme is visibility, having things in your face so that you repeat. That has been the magic sauce of everything. The big ass calendar is visible. My word that I wear is visible. The flowers was etched in my brain. It was memorable, maybe not visible, but memorable. And having flowers kept it visible. And the seasons are visible because every month they're repeatable. So visibility, repeatability, and being memorable are the things that have kept these practices so useful for me throughout the year. Now, there's one practice that I implemented that I tried on for size, didn't serve me as well, but I thought it was a cute practice, so I'm going to share it with you. It's the Gretchen Rubin practice of she makes a list of 20 something things for the year. So, in 2022, it's 22 things in 22 things in 2022. And so you would make a list. I want to read for 22 minutes. I want to walk for 22 minutes. I want to, you make a list of 22 things, and then you can make it into 22 minutes and kind of things like that. So that's a fun practice. You could make a 25 and 25 list. I created a 24 and 24 list. Again, it was a one and done. I lost the list. I didn't revisit it. It was a practice that kind of fell off. So I don't remember what my 24 things are, but I do remember one of them, I think, was that I wanted to started doing face yoga. And I just recently started doing face yoga in December. So I think I vaguely remember that being in my list, and I just started doing it. Here's the thing. The thing about the face yoga is important. I'll tell you why. Because even though I wrote this list and maybe I don't remember 100%, just the fact that I put it down on paper, that I went through the exercise of writing it, even though it was a one and done, and it's just kind of there in my subconscious, and all of a sudden it's rising to the surface, that matters also. So the point of this is you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with writing things down, with making a list, with setting things out into the universe. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe you forget. Maybe you have to revisit it again. But every practice is a beautiful practice if you are practicing to become a better version of yourself. But the most important ones for me have been those 5. Accepting the seasons, choosing a word of the year, living by monthly themes, having one thing that's in for the year, and having a big ass calendar. That has made all the difference in 2024. It's just been a great year for purposes of staying intentional. And it doesn't make it a perfect year. There have certainly been challenges, as challenges always present themselves. There have been things that have been hard from the year, but these practices overall have created a lot of magical moments and have kept me aligned and on this beautiful path to a life that sparks bliss. So that's a wrap for 2024. As we get ready to bring in a new year, I dare you to incorporate any or all of these practices into your life. I dare you to dream of the kind of year that you want to have, the experiences you desire, the upgrades you want in your mindset and your wellness and your relationships and your career and your finances and all of the things. I dare you to take some time for reflection, and I also dare you to take your time to give yourself permission to be in the dream state, to hibernate just a little bit, to embrace the winter season, and to trust that you are planting seeds, and those seeds will bloom in their perfect timing. Happy New Year. I will see you in 2025. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful for this time to connect. If you're loving this podcast, I'd love if you could support me by subscribing, rating, and or leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so much. And if you know of someone who could really use a voice like mine in their head, please share this with them and let them know how much you care about their bliss. Now, if you are feeling called to dig deeper and really work on elevating your mindset, wellness, and your relationships to create a healthier, happier, and more meaningful life, then I invite you to schedule a 60-minute complimentary consultation with me. Let's have a meaningful conversation and see if working together is in our future. You can find the link to the calendar of consults right there in my show notes, but you can also connect with me on my website, carolinedeposada.com, or just send me a DM on Instagram at @CarolineDePosada. Like my friend always says, the project is big and you're a part of it. So thanks for being here.